Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening on this beautiful February 14th, 2024. Let me know if my audio is good because I am in a hotel room. I am outside of beautiful Fredericksburg here in Central Texas as the wife and I are meeting with some friends this weekend, but that does not deter me from getting one more show off this week, especially since there's still a whole lot to go on. Welcome to the RickCast. I am the aforementioned Rick, and in a sea of vapid and pompous podcasts, you're watching another one. I am the founder of L1121 Strategies, which is undergoing a name change once again, just because I don't feel 1121 it doesn't roll off the tongue very well. But that's my organization right now. I'm also the author of The Armed Catholic, The Catholic Case for Guns and Self-Defense, and I'm a blue collar Catholic and the emperor of all the short kings. So I hope everybody's having a great week. It is now Friday. Hopefully you have wonderful plans for your Valentine's Day. Of course, watching my show is one of them, and it is going to be good. I got four stories for you off the top. Then we'll let you all. I'll release you for the weekend. Looks like the Army has banned transgenders from enlisting. Now, the media will run and tell you that they are banning them, period, and woe is me, and transgender side, and all these other things, just from enlisting. Hopefully, we'll get to the part where the rest of the transgenders actually leave. But outside of that, no, that's not as bad as they're making it out to be. Yet another federal judge has stepped in because it's the only thing that the left has right now to push back against this scattershot of things that President Trump is doing right now, as far as executive orders and Doge and all these other kinds of things that are happening. And we have another one that says, you know what, Elon, you and your merry band of 19-year-olds, you're not allowed to actually go into the Treasury and look at the Treasury data, even though the Treasury is under the executive branch. But hey, these guys are doing what they can to try and slow down this progress, even though they're doing a terrible job. And yeah, that's not very good news for any of us. And so what we're looking at there is just, I am not a fan of this idea, but Trump may have to get to the point where he invokes Andrew Jackson, meaning that the judges are going to make their decisions. I think they're going to have to enforce it, which means they won't be able to, because the executive is supposed to be the enforcement arm of the legislature. That's how the checks and balances and everything is supposed to work. But in this regard, we're still having more pushback from the left, and the only thing they can do is judges, because it's either that or it's Chuck Schumer, flailing his arms in a reckless attempt to still be relevant in some way, shape, or form. This is a pretty interesting story. In-N-Out Burger is leaving California. They are out of California. They're going to resettle in Tennessee, which is very interesting to take a look at. And it's just more the flight out of California. And In-N-Out Burger, I'm a fan. Not a fan of the fries, but everything else is really good. So it's good there. But hey, more companies are going out. I think they'll find a lot better reception in Tennessee. So good for them. And then finally, Jack the Ripper, again, is ID'd. They did it by DNA matches or some kind of nonsense. I think it's going to be funny to have us actually take a look at what's going on with Jack the Ripper being ID'd again. And it's going to be surprising. If you have not read this story, it's going to be surprising to you. And I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say. But do me a favor, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment down below. Either one, that helps the algorithm, that helps the show. And anything you can do in that regard is huge. If you're watching on X, on the X machine, hit that follow button and repost it for a larger sample size. If you're watching on Twitch, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not on Twitch, but hey, welcome. So that is what's going on for tonight. Let's get into our first story of the night because I forgot to plug this thing in. I think it's going to last the whole show, but we're just going to have to wait and see. First story, U.S. Army is banning transgender enrollment. It's very, very important to put it that way. enrollment, because the left is going to say, oh, it's the end, and it's just, enlisting. I want to make sure I actually say it correctly. The enlisting of transgenders. The left will try to tell you it's the end of the world because it is to them, but it's not. It's just the idea that we don't want people who are suffering from some kind of mental disorder to be given the keys to a drone or a tank or even to lunch. So it's a good idea, something that a little bit of a return to sanity, if you will, in that regard. But let's take a look at this real quick. Military announced in a social media post on Friday that it will no longer allow transgender people to enlist. The U.S. Army will no longer allow transgender people to enlist and stop providing gender-affirming care, transgender surgery, for service members, it announced on social media on Friday. The post said the U.S. Army will no longer allow transgender individuals to join the military and stop performing or facilitating procedures associating with gender transition for service members. Stay tuned for more details. So there was the rumor that was always shot down that people who were suffering from transgender ideology or whatever the case may be, if you enrolled in the military, you got a free sex change, essentially. Now, of course, people on the left said you're just so rude and all these other kinds of things, but you're seeing in this post right here that they're just going to stop doing it, which means there's credence to what we were saying before. People were using it to get free taxpayer or free gender transitioning surgery or whatever you want to call it on the taxpayer dime. And if you want to do that, I'm not a fan of it as a Roman Catholic. I don't believe in it, but I'm not paying for it either. I shouldn't have to pay for it so you can play pretend while you supposedly serve in the military. The announcement follows an executive order signed by President Trump on January 27th that directs the Pentagon to determine a policy for transgender service members within 30 days. The president's order stated that expressing, quote, a gender identification inconsistent with an individual's sex conflicts with a soldier's commitment to an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's own personal life. I don't see where there's a problem there, right? I don't see, if you can't figure out what you're doing in your own life, how can you have a commitment to the rest? And the idea of gender ideology, it is the most individualistic mindset in a setting that's supposed to be about teams. When you break it down that way, it actually makes a lot of sense that when somebody's obsessed with their individuality of what their identity is as their gender, it's very hard for them to put other people first. So it's interesting in that regard. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has paused bringing in recruits who have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, which is a really nice way of putting it, CBS News, and paused all gender-affirming care, quote-unquote transgender surgeries, in a memo issued February 7th. Transgender service members have been serving openly for almost 10 years and currently fill crucial roles in every branch, and specifically including infantry, aviation, nuclear engineering, law enforcement, blah, 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 said Sparta Pride, a nonprofit organization probably funded by USAID for trans service members and veterans. Yeah, I don't care if you think they're serving critical roles. It's peacetime. You can't tell me they're critical roles in a time of peace. I don't want to find out in wartime that this was a bad idea. So we need to clear it out now, and we need to get the pushback and people who want to tell you, oh, it's just not fair. These people want to serve their country. Listen, I'm a fat old guy with a blown out knee. If I want to serve my country, I can't either. And there are other people, if they don't have the right eyesight or they just can't pass it, or if they have a heart defect, you don't have a right to serve in the military. Yes, it's a volunteer force, but at the same time, if you're not up to their standards, you shouldn't be admitted. It's that simple. And I think it always goes back to this idea, well, I have the right to serve. No, you don't. No, you don't. You really, they can't let 6'5" guys be fighter pilots. Sorry, I know you might have loved Top Gun, but if you're over like 5'9", you ain't gonna be flying an F-14, which they don't exist anymore. I get it. You ain't flying an F-35 if you're over 6 foot. There are limitations, and the rest of the world has to adapt to them. People who believe they are another gender, guess what? This is what reality. One of my favorite movies is Spaceballs. Shocker, I know. And one of my favorite quotes is in Spaceballs is the part where they're in the desert, not combing the desert, but the Princess Vespa and the Han Solo knockoff are in the desert, and he just looks at her after he finds like the giant hair dryer, and he goes, "Welcome to real life." It's pretty much what these people are getting. Welcome to real life. You don't get to serve in the military if you want to, just because you want to do it. You don't get to do this. You don't get to do that, or any of these other things. So it's good. I think it's some kind of sanity. If we're going to have a lethal fighting force, because that's what the military is designed to do, it's designed to go find people and kill them, not affirm your gender ideology and make you feel better at the end of the day. So that's the end of our first story here, and I think it's well timed, and it should be, because there's no reason to give these people the delusion that they have, and it is a delusion, thinking that you're some kind of different sex than what you are. And we need to get rid of the idea of gender. Gender needs to be quietly just erased from the lexicon, because that's how they did it. It used to be sex, right? Male, female. Then it was gender, male, female. Then it was gender, 75,000 of them. So we need to remove the idea of gender from the equation and just go back to biological sex. Once we do that, most things will kind of righten themselves out. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to RickCast here on a beautiful February 14th, 2025. If I said 24 earlier, I made the mistake. It's actually 2025, in case you didn't know. Let's get to our second story of the day. Second story of the day, ladies and keep doing it. Get me over here. 14 states have filed a lawsuit arguing that Elon Musk's authority over at Doge is unconstitutional, which is it's too bad. You know, the Doge as it is started off as the U.S. Digital Service, or an executive order under Obama. Trump just took that executive order, reworded it, and pushed it back out. It's completely and 100% constitutional. But it's also ironic, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say it all together. The only time the left cares about the Constitution is when they're not violating it. So it's funny. No, we're not doing it, so it must be unconstitutional. So this is also from NBC News. A group of 14 states, I'm pretty sure you can figure out the 14 states that did it, sued Elon Musk and President Donald Trump on Thursday, arguing that the authority the White House granted the tech billionaire and his advisory Department of Government Efficiency is unconstitutional, because they actually just found the Constitution 25 minutes ago, and they're like, hey, it's not in here. The suit filed by the Democratic Attorney Generals from Arizona, very interesting, Michigan, Rhode Island, takes aim at the magnitude and scale of Musk's power, noting that Doge has led the Trump administration's effort to dramatically reduce the size of the federal workforce. Oh no, dismantling entire agencies and accessing secretive data. This is also secretive data that the federal government has abused for the last 50 years. So let's be careful about that when they actually care about, federal data now. It's only good when we do it. If Elon Musk does it, it's impossible. Even though, as we've been saying on this show over and over again, and I want to thank Phil Labonte, who I'm ripping this off of, Elon Musk, through Tesla, Twitter, or X, Starlink, and probably another company or two that I don't know about, has the largest amount of data for AI on the planet. He's got the largest data reserve for AI on the planet. So this idea that he's going to access sensitive information, he pretty much has everybody's sensitive information anyway at this point. So to try and to feel like this is, he's getting something new is crazy. And Brian's right. Musk is already in on the government grift anyway. He's getting money for himself, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, right. It's all the sensitive documents that was in Joe Biden's garage, which they're probably still there. So the founders of this country, which they think was like Martin Luther King, would be outraged that 250 years after our nation overthrew a king, the people of this country, many whom have fought and died to protect our freedoms, are now subject to the whims of a single unelected billionaire, said Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays in a statement that was written for him by George Soros. The attorney generals argue that Trump violated the appointment clause of the Constitution by creating Doge, an unofficial government agency without congressional approval, and granting Musk, quote unquote, sweeping powers without seeking advice and consent. He doesn't have to for an executive agency. It's an executive agency. So if you want to argue the case, he is pretty much an advisor to the president. You don't need You don't need to be confirmed to be an advisor to the president. And he's not doing anything. He's just saying, hey, there's this amount of money here, and then President Trump is cutting it. So Musk isn't doing anything. And the fact that they're gonna cry and moan about billionaires when George Soros, Bill Gates, Tim Cook, all of their billionaires, Warren Buffett, have had their hands all over the government for years. It just shows you how dumb they really think you are and how dumb they know their constituents are. Quote, President Trump has delegated virtually unchecked authority to Mr. Musk without proper legal authorization from Congress, which is funny because Congress doesn't do anything until they want to actually pretend they do, right? They sit back, they let the SCOTUS rule on stuff, they let the executive write executive orders. Now they want to run in and be like, oh, it's our job to do it. And you know what? If you didn't abdicate your power over the last 75 years, maybe you would have a shot. But the fact that you guys literally sit around and do nothing except go on the Sunday talk shows don't come to me about congressional power at this point. As a result, he has transformed a minor position that was formerly responsible for managing a government website into designated agent of chaos without limit or in violation of separation of powers. Don't talk to me about separation of powers. You guys don't believe in separation of powers. You're literally using this as a focus test phrase. That's it. So you have more of these lawsuits that are being filed because just like with everything else, the lawsuits are the only thing that the left can do to try and slow down Musk and Trump. Really, Trump. Musk is kind of just dancing around. And Trump really does just need to ignore him. There's, Joe Biden ignored the Supreme Court when he continued to forgive student loan debt after the Supreme Court said you can't do that. So it's not like we would be violating any kind of sacred precedent at this point. So yeah, you have these 14 states that are suing to try and stop this. I don't know. It really feels like they're grasping at straws at this point. And it really makes me happy to see them doing that because even if I don't like the idea of Musk in that role, and Musk is a welfare queen, and Musk takes a ton of money off of the government, and he is the Neuralink guy. He does want to put a chip in your brain. Right now, I'm fine with it. Right now, I'm fine with it. And if he's going to make the left mad, kind of let the dog run a little bit in that regard. All right, folks, this is RickCast, and I am glad that you are hanging out with me a little bit. We're kind of cruising through this show here on this 14th of February, 2025. I hope you guys are having a great night. You got your beers cracked open. Maybe you got some food ordered. You're ready to watch a movie after you're done watching me. And while you're doing all that, make sure you hit that like button, especially on YouTube and on Rumble, and the subscribe button and the share button, and on X. Make sure you share the show out, retweet it for a larger sample size, and retweet it for Bucky. Come on, retweet it for the Buckster. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our third story of the day. A little bit of an interesting story here, coming to us from the Los Angeles Times, and it talks about I wouldn't want to say controversial restaurant, but a restaurant that I love. I love In-N-Out Burger, but it definitely does. It definitely causes controversy because people either love In-N-Out Burger or they hate it. And I really think it's the fries because the burgers are actually pretty good, especially if you do like the animals or the 4x4 or something like that. They're delicious. But the fries are what really get people like set off, and just I hear people diatribe about how much they hate. They just cannot stand In-N-Out Burger. But In-N-Out Burger is a Christian company. If you ever looked at the bottom of their cups, they have Bible verses and things of that nature. They were one of the few companies to try and get through COVID as much as possible. They were open during the wildfires to try and feed the firefighters. It's a good company. It seems like it on the outside. But after 30 years, In-N-Out is leaving the corporate office in Orange County. California's most famous burger joint is consolidating its corporate office and operations in the Golden State back in Los Angeles County, the company announced this week. In-N-Out will shutter its Orange County corporate office, where the company has been there since 1994, and relocate employees back to Baldwin Park, where its founders first opened a drive-through restaurant in 1940s. I know my family would be in support of this move because it would bring our In-N-Out family back together in a way that helps better serve our customers who are most important priority, said Lindsay Snyder, the company owner and president, and the goddaughter of the couple that founded it. That's fantastic. The Irvine office will close by 2029. Snyder said that some of the corporate workers there will be moved to Baldwin Park, while others will make the cross-country jump to Tennessee, where the company is currently building a new corporate office that is slated to open next year. And this is, once again, this is the continued flight from California. And California will be a third world nation, essentially. I mean, it already is if you look at most parts of it. But all the things that they're known for, they're leaving because the crime rate is just ridiculous. In-N-Out Burger has actually, if you've been following it, they've been closing locations in certain parts of California. I think Oakland was one. Just they couldn't keep the place open because it wasn't safe. So it's not a shock to me that they're deciding to move. And they're going to move to a more business-friendly climate because California is not business-friendly. It never has been, despite the fact that they talk about it. They talk a big game. They say that they are. They're open for everybody. They have this big thing where Dickies moved from Fort Worth back to Los Angeles. And that's only because the parent company that owns Dickies wanted to consolidate under one roof, not because Dickies, the jean maker, was like, oh, I'm totally going to leave Texas to go to California. Nobody chooses to do that anymore. And the state is continuing its slow and very embarrassing just drying up. It's just drying up, and it's not, there's no cure for it. Especially when you see that Kamala Harris is the leader in the clubhouse to be the governor in the next election cycle, right? Gavin Newsom, he's going to step out, and Kamala Harris is the leader in the clubhouse to be the next governor of California. I'm sure the people that did not looked at that and said, yeah, we can't be here anymore. We absolutely cannot be here anymore. We don't want to deal with this nonsense. So we're going to head out the door. We'll go to a more business-friendly state. Tennessee is not a bad place. I mean, that seems like everywhere. Every conservative-minded person is moving to Tennessee. You have the Daily Wire, which we know I'm no fans of. You also have other major conservatives moving to Tennessee. Now you have In-N-Out Burger moving to Tennessee. So, they seem to be very open to business. They seem to be very good to their customers or to their tax base and to business friendly and a business friendly climate. So for In-N-Out Burger for doing that, because you got to look out for yourself, right? They've been in California since 1940, and things have gotten that bad that the granddaughter of the person that founded it said, yeah, we just can't be here anymore. We just can't do this anymore because it doesn't work. It doesn't work for you. And you got to take care of your business and the people that work there more than anything else. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the RickCast. I am the aforementioned, right? I am the aforementioned Rick, and I am happy that you guys are taking some time out of your day on this Friday to hang out with me. We got 6 people on Rumble, which is like 35 on YouTube, right? The Rumble numbers. So you Rumble people, you let me know what's going on. If you're watching on Rumble right now, you hit that like button. Hit that like button. You let me know that you're liking the show. Leave me a comment and, tell me what you like and what you don't like. People on YouTube are doing that. My people on X, hit that follow button, share it. And let's get more people in here for our final story of the night. Nobody else has really covered this. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. I am kind of fast forwarding through here because my battery's dying, to be completely honest with you. But that's okay. We got our stories in. Last story of the day. Very interesting. This stuff, I mean, I've told you in the past, I've related to you in the past that one of the things I like to do in my off time, I love like Mr. Ballin's channel and wartime stories and stuff about Appalachia and cryptids and stuff like that. And of course, Jack the Ripper kind of falls into that mythical area of stuff, especially now. Just the amount of time and the way that the story has grown. And it's always funny. Every couple of years, somebody tries to make some kind of headlines about, oh, I finally identified the identity of Jack the Ripper. And this makes some headlines, and people are like, yeah, that's a great idea, and then kind of dies. And then 5 years later, somebody else says, oh, I've identified Jack the Ripper. And, will anybody actually do it? I don't know. But let's see if this one works. This is from the dailyrecord.uk. Jack the Ripper's identity revealed 130 years later through a DNA match, because you can get DNA 130 years later. Let's see. Jack the Ripper is one of the most recognizable names in the world for all the wrong reasons. The serial killer tortured and murdered women in London in 1888. And if he had only known that it would be run by Muslims at this time, and that it would be a Muslim majority city, he would have fit right in. But that's a different story. The story sends chills down Brits' spine to this day, the ones that are left, and has been retold in countless true crime podcast series and films since the 1970s. The identity of Jack the Ripper has long been shrouded in mystery. However, in a dramatic turn of events, 130 years from his horrific crimes, the killer's identity has now been revealed through a DNA match. Just like Jurassic Park, they found his DNA. Now they're going to make like a full clone of him and set him loose in the park. Jack the Ripper was a man named Aaron Kosminski. I'll let you sit on that name there for a minute. Aaron Kosminski. Okay. According to the Daily Mail. The revelation came after historian Russell Edwards extracted DNA from a shawl he came upon and used it to determine that Kosminski was the man behind the ominous alias of Jack the Ripper. The finding has been 100% confirmed, don't know what that means, after Edwards hired a team to eliminate any doubt over the DNA match. So, of course, the people you hired would obviously tell you that you are correct. Nobody ever seems to put two and two together on that one. As a result, he went public with the findings, which outs the vicious individual who inflicted pain on so many young victims. Aaron Kosminski. All right, my audience, you're very smart. I want you to listen to this paragraph and see if something works out here, if something's wrong or if something's right. Aaron Kosminski was a Polish immigrant? Was he? Or was he something else? I'll let you sit on that one. He was a barber, much like Sweeney Todd, and he moved to London. The findings show he was only a young man when he embarked on his killing spree, 23 years old to be exact, which in 1888 made him like 60. Incredibly, Kosminski was a suspect at one point during the police investigation into the slayings. He was later admitted to a mental institute where he died in 1919. To uncover the killer's identity, Kosminski's oldest brother's great-great-granddaughter actually helped Edward. She provided a DNA sample that was able to be matched with that of the shawl. This just sounds like scientific, this sounds like nonsense, right? His great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter gave a DNA sample because I'm sure the DNA is a one-to-one match. How would you even match that? I don't know. This sounds like CSI nonsense. Or it sounds like Law and Order Criminal Intent. Edwards bought the item of clothing around 20 years ago when he was informed that it had been seen at one of Jack the Ripper's murders. So let me ask you this, Mr. Guy who put this together and is now trying. Was it bagged properly into evidence? Because it's 135 years old or 128 years old when you found it. So you're telling me that no other DNA has touched the shawl since the scene of the crime and that nobody else's DNA could have gotten on this? See how it doesn't start to make sense? I mean, it makes for a great headline and it makes for a flashy thing, but it's not. I mean, the chain of custody on this thing, and an idiot like myself can break it pretty quick. Let me know if you think I'm correct in the comment section down below. The development has provided a sense of comfort and close to the family of the woman who died. How can you find these people? Karen Miller, the great-great-great-granddaughter of one of the victims, and Catherine Eddowes told the Daily Mail, having the real person legitimately named in court, which can consider all the evidence, would be a form of justice for the victims. The victims are dead. The victims have been dead for 130 years. I don't know what comfort you're looking for. Is it a way to keep your name in the headlines? Maybe make a little money off of this? Maybe, sell some tours? I get it. But let's not talk about justice for the victims who have been dead for over a century. Yeah, exactly, Lou. Lou's got it right there. He's a bit of a charlatan. They're always charlatans. I found this shawl, and this shawl has been touched by Jack the Ripper. And I found his great-great-great-great-great times 5 granddaughter, and they have the exact DNA. I don't think that's how DNA works. I mean, all I know from DNA is that what I learned from Jurassic Park, but I don't think that's really the case. We've got proof now, and now we have this inquest to legally name the killer. The inquest, which is a judicial inquiry to reinvestigate past murders, is already underway thanks to Edwards and his team. They have reached the UK High Court to reopen the murders because they got nothing better to do, not like track down gang members of a certain part of the world. The news comes shortly after a letter purchased on eBay to identify Jack the Ripper as Aaron Kosminski, a 14-line note which was bought by Bradford Carpenter Fitter for 240 euros. I don't know how much that's, like $10 or $1,000. I don't know. Could be valued at around 125,000 after scientists authenticated it and confirmed it was written at the time of the Ripper murders. These are all just hearsay and conjecture. Now, it's fun to talk about on a Friday afternoon because there's really not that much news out there. But the fact is, they always come out with some kind of new finding. They come out with some kind of new evidence, because all this evidence just kind of keeps popping up. It doesn't get destroyed and doesn't get all these other kinds of things. I'm surprised this guy didn't say, oh, it was underneath my bed. I pried open a floorboard, and there was a note that said, I am Jack the Ripper, signed Aaron Kosminski. Because none of these things they're never solid. This will make great headlines, and the people will be able to make a little bit of money off of it. They'll make a documentary, and they'll try to present this as some kind of legitimate evidence. But DNA is not the be-all, end-all. Despite what you think by watching Law & Order or CSI or any of these other things, DNA is not the science that we think it is. And the fact that we're being, and honestly, I'm going to end on this. I think this is just being used as more propaganda to be like, hey, we can find somebody's identity out 138 years later, so you better behave. Because if you're not good, in 150 years, we'll dig up your DNA and we'll connect you to something that happened, 20 years ago because of something and somewhere and DNA and science and stuff. But it's kind of funny to see this poor dude, if he didn't do it. Maybe he did. Maybe it's right. Maybe I'm a complete fool at this point. Wouldn't be the first time. Won't be the last time. But still, it is kind of always hysterical how they run with these things as soon as they come out. As soon as they're announced, they run with them as if they were fact, kind of like anything else. And then when it's disproven, there'll be a small article in the daily UK Mail or something like that, and it'll just say, purported evidence to claim who Jack the Ripper was disputed in court. And that'll be it. But this lie will continue for a long time. And Aaron Kosminski, if he is, then he's been ID'd. If not, doesn't really have a chance to defend himself, does he? Of course, that's the UK system. The UK system's not as thorough or robust as the US legal system. He doesn't get the chance, he's being defamed without a chance to defend himself. And as somebody who likes the law, I don't really like that. I don't think this stuff should be pushed out that way because, now people are going to track down his family and they're going to be like, do you have the tendencies or did you blah, 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 do you have any notes or any of this other kind of stuff? And it's just nonsense. But hey, people got to have hobbies, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this episode of RickCast on this fantastic February 14th, 2025. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. Please do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, do all the fun things to help this show grow. People on Rumble, I got 4 of you watching on Rumble right now. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. YouTubers, hit that like button. People on X, retweet it. Hit the heart so that way when this show goes live on Monday, you'll be here as well. Speaking of which, I will see you on Monday, ladies and gentlemen. I want you all to have a great weekend. God bless. And until such time, free Dexter Taylor.